The Man Who Wrote Freedom, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's full story of resilience, education, and equality. Part 1. Overcoming the Chains of Birth. A Birth Under the Shadow. Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new, powerful series. Today, we begin the monumental story of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the man who proved that knowledge is the greatest weapon against injustice. His life is a blazing example of determination, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of equality. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar was born on April 14, 1891, in Mo, a military cantonment town in present-day Madhya Pradesh. He was born into the Mahar community, which, at the time, was considered untouchable under the rigid caste system prevalent in India. His father, Ramji Sakpal, was a subadar, a high-ranking non-commissioned officer in the British Indian Army. This military background provided Bhimrao with a crucial initial advantage. His father had received an English education and ensured that his children, including Bhimrao, were admitted to school. However, formal admission did not mean acceptance. From his very first day in school, young Bhimrao faced the brutal reality of social prejudice. The challenges he faced in his childhood were not matters of poverty or lack of opportunity. They were matters of dignity and humanity. The scars of untouchability. Ambedkar's early life in school was filled with traumatic instances of discrimination. He and his brother were forced to sit on a sack provided by them, outside the classroom, for fear of polluting the other students. They were not allowed to drink water from the common tap. Instead, a peon, a lower-grade official, would pour water from a height for them, and if the peon was absent, they went thirsty. He later described these incidents as being marked by the perpetual refrain, "No peon, no water." His childhood was a relentless struggle against this invisible yet pervasive wall of segregation. In one village, a kind teacher who was not his own allowed him to change his surname from Ambedkar to Ambedkar, his own surname, out of affection. This small act of kindness was rare, but it highlighted the depth of the social malice surrounding him. These early scars did not break his spirit. They ignited in him an immense, lifelong resolve to fight the system that perpetuated this inhumanity. This formative period taught him that social equality could not be begged for. It had to be demanded and established through law, backed by knowledge and political power. A beacon of hope, Baroda, and higher education. Despite the humiliation and constant struggle, Ambedkar was an exceptionally brilliant and voracious student. He devoured books, often studying late into the night. His academic promise eventually caught the attention of an unlikely patron, Maharaja Satyagraha Gaekwad III of Baroda, a progressive ruler who was committed to social reform. In 1913, the Maharaja granted Ambedkar a scholarship to pursue higher studies in the United States, a chance that was nothing short of miraculous for a young man from his community. This opportunity represented the ultimate break from the chains of his birth, but it was purchased through intense academic merit and a thirst for knowledge that could not be suppressed. The pursuit of global knowledge. Ambedkar enrolled at Columbia University in New York. Stepping onto American soil was like entering a new world. For the first time, he experienced relative social equality, allowing him to focus solely on his studies without the daily burden of untouchability. He studied economics, sociology, and political science with immense dedication. He wrote his master's thesis on ancient Indian commerce and his doctoral dissertation on the evolution of provincial finance in British India. His intellectual rigor was astounding. He saw education not as a path to personal wealth, but as the essential tool for social liberation. His time in America transformed him from a brilliant student into a formidable scholar. Upon returning to India, he was obligated to serve the Baroda state under the terms of his scholarship. However, even with his Columbia degree, the prejudice followed him. He was shunned by colleagues, couldn't find housing, and was once again subjected to the daily indignities of untouchability. He soon realized that a few degrees did not erase centuries of social hierarchy. He resigned and decided to return to the world of academics. His intellectual journey continued in London, where he pursued further studies at the London School of Economics, LSE, and simultaneously studied law at Gray's Inn. He earned a D.Sc. Doctor of Science in economics from the LSE and was called to the bar. By the early 1920s, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was arguably the most educated Indian of his generation, armed with degrees from the world's most prestigious institutions. This unparalleled intellectual armor would become his weapon in the monumental battle for the rights and dignity of millions. His early life is a towering testament to the motivational power of education and the sheer strength of will required to turn crushing adversity into unstoppable success. Part 2. The Fight for Dignity and Justice. Returning to the battlefield. Welcome back to the second chapter of our series on the extraordinary life of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. In Part 1, we witnessed his relentless pursuit of knowledge that took him across continents. In this segment, we see him return to India, transforming his unparalleled education into a direct challenge against the entrenched social hierarchy. Returning to Bombay in the mid-1920s, Dr. Ambedkar was armed with multiple degrees from Columbia and the LSE. He was an intellectual giant, yet he was met not with respect, but with the same pervasive social rejection. This constant friction between his intellectual status and his social exclusion fueled his determination to fight for the dignity of his community. He realized that degrees and professional success meant nothing if they did not guarantee basic human rights. Ambedkar committed himself fully to activism and political organization. He understood that the struggle for social liberation required political power, legal backing, and, most importantly, the awakening of the oppressed communities themselves. He started newspapers and journals like Muknayak, Leader of the Voiceless, and Bajkrit Bharat, Excluded India. These platforms were crucial for educating his community, articulating their rights, and providing a powerful voice to those systematically silenced by society. The Great Public Protests. Ambedkar was a leader who believed in direct action to challenge unjust traditions and laws. He spearheaded two famous movements that demonstrated the power of nonviolent assertion and became symbolic milestones in the fight for civil rights. 1. The Mahad Satyagraha, 1927. This was a powerful test of the right to public resources. In the town of Mahad, the untouchable community was forbidden from using the public tank, a large reservoir of water, a right enjoyed by all other castes. Ambedkar led thousands of people to the tank. He personally stooped down and drank water from the tank, a simple, symbolic act that openly defied the centuries-old custom of untouchability. The act itself was peaceful, but it provoked a violent reaction from upper caste groups, demonstrating the deep-seated prejudice he was fighting. The Satyagraha established the principle: public resources are for all citizens. 2. The Kalaram Temple Entry Movement. 1930. Following the Mahad protest, Ambedkar launched a movement demanding the right of entry for his community into the Kalaram Temple in Nashik. This protest lasted for years. For Ambedkar, temple entry was not about religious devotion, but about achieving social equality and recognition of human dignity. While the physical entry into temples was resisted for a long time, the movement effectively exposed the hypocrisy of a system that preached religion while practicing exclusion. These movements were not just protests. They were educational campaigns aimed at instilling self-respect and confidence in the oppressed communities. Ambedkar's core message was always: educate, agitate, organize. He insisted that liberation would come through self-effort and political unity, not through charity or pity. The dawn of political representation. Ambedkar's intellectual firepower and fierce dedication quickly made him a formidable figure in national politics. He realized that symbolic protest was insufficient. Genuine change required constitutional safeguards. He began demanding separate political representation for the depressed classes, believing that only their own elected representatives could truly fight for their interests in the legislative assemblies. His commitment to securing a political voice led him to the Round Table Conferences in London in the early 1930s. He represented the untouchables and argued powerfully for their rights to be recognized in any future constitution of India. He famously clashed with Mahatma Gandhi at these conferences regarding the issue of separate electorates. While Gandhi feared that separate electorates would permanently divide the Hindu social body, Ambedkar argued that political safeguards were the only way to ensure that the oppressed classes would not be perpetually marginalized by the majority. The British government eventually agreed to Ambedkar's demand for separate electorates. This led to the pivotal event known as the Poona Pact, 1932. Gandhi, viewing the separate electorates as a devastating blow to social unity, undertook a fast unto death against the decision. Ambedkar faced an agonizing dilemma, maintaining political power for his community versus saving Gandhi's life. He ultimately negotiated the Poona Pact with Gandhi and other leaders. In this pact, Ambedkar agreed to give up the separate electorates in exchange for a significantly larger number of reserved seats for the depressed classes in the general legislature. This compromise ensured that the voices of the oppressed would be heard, while avoiding a major split in the freedom movement. This episode demonstrated Ambedkar's pragmatism and his immense pressure to balance political necessity with deep social responsibilities. Ambedkar then continued his political work by forming the Independent Labour Party in 1936, demonstrating his dedication to the rights of all marginalized people, including industrial workers and small farmers. His journey from an outcast student to a key political negotiator showed the power of education as the ultimate leveler against social hierarchy. Part 3. The Architect of Law and Liberty. The Call to Constitution. Welcome back to the third, and arguably most important, part of our inspirational series on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Having mastered academia and fought vigorously on the streets, Ambedkar was now called upon to wield his immense legal knowledge for the benefit of the entire nation. His political journey reached its zenith immediately after India achieved independence in 1947. Despite their previous conflicts over the Poona Pact, India's first Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, recognized Ambedkar's unmatched intellectual brilliance, legal expertise, and profound understanding of social injustice. Nehru invited Ambedkar to join his first cabinet as the Minister of Law. Crucially, Ambedkar was appointed the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constituent Assembly. This was an astonishing and historic appointment. The man who had suffered the deepest societal exclusion was now tasked with writing the fundamental law for a new, independent nation, ensuring that the mistakes of the past could never be repeated. He viewed this role not just as a job, but as the opportunity to translate his entire life struggle for equality into concrete, protective, and enforceable law. Drafting a revolutionary document. The task of drafting the Constitution was monumental, involving complex negotiations, detailed study of global constitutions, and addressing the immense diversity and historical inequalities of India. Ambedkar tackled this challenge with characteristic vigor and intellectual rigor. He was relentless, often working for long hours, synthesizing, debating, and defending every single clause. Ambedkar's vision for the Constitution was not simply a political framework, it was a social revolution in print. He ensured that the document was explicitly designed to dismantle the very foundations of the hierarchical society that had oppressed him. His core contributions revolved around securing equality and protection for the marginalized. 1. Fundamental rights. He ensured that the Constitution enshrined a comprehensive set of fundamental rights, making them justiciable, meaning citizens could go to court to enforce them. 2. Abolition of untouchability. The most direct attack on the old system was Article 17, which formally abolished untouchability and forbade its practice in any form, making it a punishable offense. This single clause legally wiped out centuries of prejudice. 3. Reservations. Affirmative action. He provided a system of reservations, quotas, in educational institutions and government jobs for the scheduled castes and tribes, viewing it as a mechanism for temporary positive discrimination to correct historical wrongs and ensure inclusive representation in power structures. 4. Equality and dignity. He introduced the principle of one person, one vote, ensuring universal adult franchise and establishing political equality irrespective of birth, caste, or religion. Ambedkar famously referred to Article 32, which grants citizens the right to constitutional remedies, as the heart and soul of the Constitution, emphasizing that without the ability to enforce rights, they are meaningless. The Architect's Warning. Ambedkar did not just write the law, he articulated the philosophy behind it. In his closing speech to the Constituent Assembly, he delivered a powerful warning that remains relevant today. He spoke of the crucial distinction between political equality and social equality. He argued that India was entering a life of contradictions. In politics, it would have equality, one person, one vote. But in social and economic life, there would still be inequality. He stressed that unless this social contradiction was removed at the earliest possible moment, those who suffer from inequality would blow up the structure of political democracy. This warning showed his deep, practical understanding that a constitution is not just a piece of paper. It relies entirely on the morality and democratic spirit of the society it governs. He inspired the nation to understand that democracy is not merely a form of government, but a mode of associated living, of conjoint communicated experience. The adoption of the Constitution on January 26, 1950, stands as the crowning achievement of Dr. Ambedkar's life. His perseverance, intellectual brilliance, and moral fortitude provided the legal framework that protects every citizen of India today. Part 4. The uncompromising fight for women's rights. Law Minister and the battle for reform. Welcome to the fourth inspirational part of our series on Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. After gifting the nation its foundational law, Ambedkar utilized his position as law minister to pursue what he considered the necessary next step for a truly modern, egalitarian India: social and gender reform. His fight during this period was marked by uncompromising conviction and immense political sacrifice. Ambedkar believed that the true measure of a society's progress was the status of its women. He observed that ancient laws and traditions were the primary sources of inequality and subordination, especially for women. He sought to revolutionize the personal laws governing the majority Hindu population, which were rigid and often discriminatory against women regarding property and marriage. His vehicle for this change was the Hindu Code Bill. The fight for the Hindu Code Bill. The Hindu Code Bill was a comprehensive piece of legislation aimed at modernizing and standardizing Hindu personal law across the country. It proposed radical changes, including 1. Right to property, giving daughters, wives, and mothers the right to inherit property equally with sons, a revolutionary concept at the time. 2. Abolition of polygamy, making monogamy mandatory for Hindu men. 3. Divorce rights, granting women the right to divorce and legalizing inter-caste marriages. This was perhaps the most difficult political battle of his career. It was not fought against a colonial power, but against conservative elements within his own country and within the political establishment itself, who viewed the bill as an assault on Hindu tradition and religion. Ambedkar spent years drafting, defending, and passionately arguing for the bill in the parliament. He faced relentless opposition from traditionalists, religious leaders, and some powerful political figures who engaged in fierce public protests and parliamentary stalling tactics. Historical photo of Dr. Ambedkar arguing passionately in the Constituent Assembly. Ambedkar's defense was powerful and articulate. He argued that the purpose of the bill was not to destroy Hindu society, but to reform and revitalize it, making it compatible with the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity enshrined in the Constitution he had just helped write. He stated that a truly democratic state could not be founded on a socially undemocratic society. The ultimate sacrifice. Despite Ambedkar's heroic efforts and the support of Prime Minister Nehru, the opposition proved too strong. The bill was consistently obstructed and delayed. Recognizing that the government lacked the political will and majority support to push the comprehensive bill through, Nehru decided to break it into smaller, manageable parts, a move that fundamentally frustrated Ambedkar's goal of swift, complete reform. The failure to pass the unified Hindu Code Bill was a devastating blow to Ambedkar. He saw it as a betrayal of the promises of social equality and a deep setback for the rights of women. In 1951, Dr. Ambedkar resigned from the Union Cabinet. His resignation was an act of profound political integrity. He stepped down not over a political disagreement on economics or foreign policy, but over the failure to enact social justice, a demonstration that, for him, social reform was the highest duty of the state. He publicly lamented that he felt his services were no longer required if the government was unwilling to uphold the fundamental principle of equality for women. Legacy in law. Although the unified bill failed at the time, Ambedkar's immense efforts were not in vain. The groundwork he laid was critical. Over the next few years, the key provisions of the Hindu Code Bill were passed piece by piece, as the Hindu Marriage Act, the Hindu Succession Act, and the Hindu Adoption and Maintenance Act. His tireless work ensured that Hindu women today have rights to divorce, property inheritance, and monogamous marriage. This episode of his life stands as a motivational lesson in uncompromising conviction. It teaches us that fighting for deeply unpopular but ethically essential reforms, even at the cost of one's own power and position, is the hallmark of true leadership. He left a comfortable cabinet post for the sake of a principle, the principle of equality for women. Part 5. The final act of liberation and eternal legacy. The search for a spiritual home. Welcome to the fifth and final chapter of the inspiring story of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Having delivered political freedom through the Constitution and fought for social reform through the Hindu Code Bill, Ambedkar turned his focus to the final, most personal quest, finding a spiritual system that could truly offer equality and dignity. Ambedkar believed that for his community to achieve total psychological and social liberation, they needed a religion that treated them as equals, not as inferior beings. For decades, he had studied the major world religions, Islam, Christianity, and Sikhism, but ultimately found them insufficient for his specific social and philosophical needs. He finally concluded that Buddhism offered the most suitable path. Buddhism, born in India, rejected the concept of caste, embraced rationality, preached equality, non-hierarchy, and emphasized ethics and social responsibility rather than rituals and divine worship. On October 14, 1956, in a massive public ceremony in Nagpur, Dr. Ambedkar, along with nearly 500,000 of his followers, formally converted to Buddhism. This act was not merely religious. It was a profound socio-political statement, a final act of moral rejection of the caste system and a mass movement towards self-respect. It was the culmination of his life's work. Political equality had been established by the Constitution, and now, spiritual and social equality was achieved by conscious choice. Final teachings and personal battles. Despite his immense workload and activism, Ambedkar was a prolific writer and orator until his very last day. He poured his final energies into writing scholarly works on economics, history, and theology, including his magnum opus on Buddhism, the Buddha, and his Dhamma. His last years were a period of intense intellectual output, even as his health deteriorated severely due. He suffered from diabetes and debilitating eyesight problems. Yet, he continued to teach, write, and guide his movement. His motivation was simple. He felt he was racing against time to complete his mission. Ambedkar passed away in his sleep on December 6, 1956, at his home in Delhi. His funeral was attended by hundreds of thousands, a testament to the immense love and reverence he commanded. He left behind not just a library of books, but a vibrant social movement committed to dignity and education. The enduring legacy of Babasaheb. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is today revered across India and the world as Babasaheb, respected father, and stands as one of the most powerful and inspirational figures of the 20th century. 1. Father of the Constitution. This remains his most recognized title, and the Constitution remains the unbreakable shield protecting Indian democracy and its citizens' rights. 2. Emancipator of the depressed classes. His efforts fundamentally altered the social and political landscape, ensuring that birth was no longer destiny. He awakened millions to their rights and gave them the tools, education, organization, and law to fight for justice. 3. Global inspiration. His life proves that the path to liberation is through knowledge and courage. He showed that the person at the very bottom of the social ladder, armed only with intelligence and resilience, can fundamentally rewrite the rules for everyone. His story is a permanent, motivational reminder that true democracy must be measured by the treatment of its most marginalized citizens. Ambedkar's life teaches us that you should never accept injustice, and that the greatest revolution is achieved not through violence, but by mastering the law, demanding human dignity, and exercising your intellect without compromise. We hope this comprehensive, 5-part series on the extraordinary life of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has been deeply inspiring. Subscribe to this channel right now for more full-length motivational stories of phenomenal global personalities and continue learning English with engaging content.